der zentralen Position, muss Schwanzer unter Vorsicht, dann ist es Fjørtoft, der ist im Strafraum, Tor! Tor! Für die Frankfurter Eintracht, 5:1, herrlich!
Welcome to the German Fußball podcast, as we're here to conclude the third round of what was a wild round, and I guess we will get into it with the on-the-ground reporter for the ESPN, Archie. First of all, welcome.
Hi, Marcus. Hi, how you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right. I think we should just go straight into it, because if you follow Archie on Twitter, you'll see that he was at the Dortmund game, the Dortmund Bremen game, which was a crazy game. I don't think there's ever been in Bundesliga history a case in which a team is trailed by multiple goals in the 89th minute to go on to win it. I guess I'll start open. How did you experience that game?
Well, here's the thing, Marcus. As Jan knows very well, in our jobs as on-the-ground reporters, it means that you have to leave your seat a little early to get down to the tunnel for the interviews. So when I left my seat on 86 minutes, I was walking downstairs and expecting to arrive there, and it would be pretty straightforward. Sure, Dortmund hadn't played well, but in the end, Bremen hadn't had the necessary Durchschlagskraft, as they say in German, that penetrating edge. And then I got down there and it was 2-1. I was like, right. And then just watching the screen in the tunnel with my mouth ajar as Niklas Schmidt equalized, and thinking, well, that's a terrible result for Dortmund. And then you see Oliver Burke going through, you're like, no, not like, what? And then you hear the roar from down the tunnel, which makes its way up to you. But then what's funnier is that there was one guy in the Bremen dressing room who you could hear just shout at the top of his lungs, which is right next to our position. And you're just like, how did this happen? Because on the one hand, as you say, it was strange to see such a thing happen after the 89th minute. But on the other hand, Bremen deserved it, because Dortmund didn't play well at all. Bremen created lots of chances. And on the balance of play, as Edin Terzic said, look, it can't happen that we're 2-0 up in the 89th minute and we don't win. But on the other hand, it was a deserved win. And I agree with him.
And it's quite interesting, because Archie is there describing sometimes happens all the time to us. When I went to Stamford Bridge the other day, and then we were put in the smallest room in the history of football, and we were like 12 channels in there, no air condition. That's okay. You can live with that for some minutes. No Wi-Fi, no TV. In the 80th minute between Chelsea and Tottenham, everybody knows what happened in the last 10 minutes of that game. So I so understand Archie's feeling being out there. I have to say about Archie as well, we've known each other for many years, and we shared so many stadiums for different channels. So it was amazing, Archie. But going back to sport, because you just feel Marcus said it's remarkable that this happening. But if you've seen the start of Dortmund, and I must say also that Archie would have this point, being on his way down, thinking who he will speak to. He would think about the headlines. What would be the first question to test? He would probably be something like, you haven't played well, but you got 9 points. Fantastic. What does that mean? I can imagine Archie. And then they just change around. And Archie, back to Dortmund, because it's, well, the word I'm looking for is embarrassing. Because the whole weekend, all German pundits have been laughing the head off of this club that fired Marco Rose. But you can't be 2-0 up against Werder Bremen. All due respect to Werder Bremen, a great football club of history, but that can't happen.
No. And it comes back down to some of the individual positions where you're wondering, are Dortmund strong enough in these areas? Such as Julian Brandt scored the opening goal, but there was a very noticeable moment when he had a bad action, and which is a direct translation from German, but you get the picture. And the crowd started to get on his back after I remember what it was now. He shanked a cross well over the crossbar, and Jamie Bino Gittens also finding his way. I'm not convinced by Marius Wolf as a permanent right back solution once in a while, sure, but okay, he made a strong impression off the bench against Freiburg. Rafael Guerreiro on the left-hand side, defensively, as we've known for years, not quite there. And these are too many, lots of German today, Baustellen, roadworks in the Dortmund squad still. And whilst they have made some impressive signings like Nico Schlotterbeck, for example, like Niklas Süle, albeit he came on when it was 2-0 and Mats Hummels was off the pitch, and you're thinking this is going to be the strongest defensive pairing. So I think it's taking time for Edin Terzic to work his magic. And the key factor that I missed from when he was last in charge is Jadon Sancho. Like, them missing a player like him going forward is such a qualitative difference in that team. And Anthony Modeste, bless him, he looked lost up front there. So many different things pulling in different directions in Dortmund. And given the way that Hertha performed away at Gladbach the other night, I think they're going to look at that Dortmund team and be like, they're there to be beaten right now, which is not a great sign for the title race.
Not at all. My impression was that they won the first game against Leverkusen, ugly, but that was a marker of a different Dortmund team. They won the ugly games, tight games. Then you have a game like Freiburg, where up until that Flecken mistake, Dortmund didn't have much, to say the least. No. So my impression is that those first two wins have sort of disguised what might be a bigger issue at hand. Is that fair to say, considering how the last weekend went, that the wins have disguised the real issues?
I think you're right, but I think it's also right to understand the Dortmund culture, because Dortmund, if you remember back in the 80s, when you have in Soviet Union, you have the general secretary and you have 5-6 people just around them. And it's like, when you go to Dortmund, I love Dortmund football. I love the stadium. I love everything. But I also love this kind of Sammer, Watzke, Zorc, Kehl, Terzic. They're all around there. And somehow when Sammer put on his professor hat, where they make the decision, take out the Rose, we'll get in Terzic, and all that kind of, I'm not saying it complicated this, because I love to discuss football. Matthias Sammer is one of the brains of football, but it just shows you things doesn't go automatically. I think that Archie is right there. They're missing Sancho. They're missing Haaland's goals. They're missing a lot of things that when you see clubs struggling, and you see Eintracht Frankfurt, for example, now missing that, what shall I say, the match winner is often underestimated, because a match winner is not only the guy who scores you the goals. The match winner is also the guy who turn a game. And I think that has always been a problem, Archie, with Dortmund. There are too many players who are similar kind of types, both physically and mentally.
It's the place where good Bundesliga wingers have gone to die. If you look at Julian Brandt and the kind of player he was at Leverkusen, at least he was more consistent, I felt, and Torgan Hazard as well. Plus Emre Can, I didn't mention him the first time round. He was very poor on Saturday. I think he'd classify that himself. And when he came on for Mo Dahoud, who dislocated his shoulder in the first half, it puzzled me why Salih Özcan didn't come on instead of him. I think Emre Can will find it difficult to hold down his place. It's difficult to put your finger exactly on everything that's wrong. I think it's just still that there are so many problems for them to fix from last season. It's going to take time, but you would trust that they're going to push more in the same direction under Edin Terzic than they would have under Marco Rose, who I don't think they trusted with the general direction. Plus, let's remember, lots of changes off the pitch with a new fitness coach in Shad Forsyth, who's very well respected in Germany, and previously I had been at Arsenal. You look at Peter Hermann coming in as assistant manager, something of a god of an assistant coach seen in the German game as well, for what he's done at Bayern Munich, for instance, and latterly as well when he was with Friedhelm Funkel at Fortuna Düsseldorf, as it's pointed out, and the whole medical team as well. They made big changes there, so it's going to take some time for these things to click. They don't have nearly the same strength and depth as Bayern. I think, some plasters over some wounds still that are very much healing, and players who are not the finished article yet. I think they missed out on David Raum this summer, and that is going to hurt them at left back as well. Because the big problem for me is at full back. If I look at the options that Bayern have there, and I look at the options that Dortmund have there, it's just a completely different level. And to be a very good attacking team at the top European level, you have to have brilliant fullbacks, and I think they're lacking in that area.
If we move on from Dortmund, the problems are sure to be handled by the management and players, hopefully. But let's just let's just get it out of the way. The Bayern game, 7-0. A team has never started the Bundesliga better after 3 games than Bayern have. 20 goals in 4 games, including the other games. 9 different goal scorers. No Lewandowski seems to be no issue. I mean, how good are Bayern right now? Is it the best they've ever been? Like, how do you see it? And how now without Lewandowski, which people said, would be a problem, they seem to be better than ever.
You mean that Lewandowski can't score goals?
Yes.
2 goals this weekend for Barcelona. And a fantastic, if you haven't seen that, his assist there as well. Now, let me start by building up to Bayern from Archie's place going to Dortmund. I follow the games, I follow the live updates, I follow Dortmund watching it. And then Leverkusen, of course, losing. Hoffenheim, 3-0. Leverkusen, Derek Ray, our mutual friend.
He'll never forget that.
He will never forget that. But
with
football pundits love to have Leverkusen's favorites in the Bundesliga. Yeah, they just love that. They love that. Okay, forget it, because I've been living in a time when they were called Neverkusen, so I will stop there. Yeah. Okay, so then you have the next game, the next challenger. Where did they go? They go to Union Berlin. That is RB Leipzig. Okay, let's go to Berlin. Leipzig, East Germany. Let's find it together. Let's win this game as a challenger. Now, losing 2-1, of course they do. Union Berlin, fantastic respect. Then I come to your game, Marcus. Bayern, because Bayern lost against Bochum last season. Well, maybe not fair, but they lost the game. So you think, as everybody think, well, Bayern now, maybe they will slip up as well. 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. And you just, I mean, the challenges, Archie, for me in Germany, and I see it also in social media, we have to stop all this thinking of Bayern should get weakened or more weakened or worse and everything. And people say, yeah, they steal all the players from the Bundesliga teams. Well, this time around, they didn't. But Leipzig, what did they do last summer? Okay, we have a fantastic coach here, and we're second in the league. You can have our captain, of course you can, but you can also have our coach. Of course you can, because we got so much money for him. So let's go, because we got this guy called Jesse March. He's quite good, and he is good, as he's showing in Leeds United now. But I think that there has to be a rethink, Archie, because I think it's too easy to criticize, but somehow the anger among fans is towards Bayern, but Bayern they're just getting better and better. I think we just have to start to respect them and start criticizing these other so-called challengers who are like clowns in the Bundesliga at the moment.
I find it difficult to go in too hard on the challengers, to be honest, because there's just such a financial gap between what Bayern have in resources ploughed into it and what the likes of Dortmund, Leverkusen, Leipzig even are putting in. So I don't know whether it's about putting a finger at Bayern there. I think the bigger picture is, what does the Bundesliga stand for? The Bundesliga can't be viewed through a Premier League prism, because ultimately it's not about pure entertainment. That's what the Premier League is. You see it in terms of the way that the clubs are structured there, the way that politically, morally, it doesn't matter what you stand for. Looking at Newcastle, looking at Manchester City, for example, it just matters how much money you have. And in Germany, that's just not how things are structured. And you have these voices saying, should 50+1 go? But I think what people forget with say if the structure of the clubs was to fall apart, say that 50+1 left, do we think honestly that wouldn't mean that Bayern get more powerful? The gap there is too strong already. And what's happened in the last decade with the Champions League money has made them stronger and pushed them onto a level that the likes of Bochum can't lay a glove on them on a normal day, like yesterday. So it's a difficult situation to resolve, but I think it's one that you kind of have to accept right now. And it's easy to point fingers amongst ourselves about who's at fault here, but it's ultimately about German football wanting to stand for something.
Mm-hmm. But Archie, if I may just say,
sure,
because I agree with you, and this is not easy, and my rant is based on a lot of things that I sometimes feel that they're looking for excuses. Yes, there is a fantastic gap, and yes, when you see the owners of Bayern Munich, the 50+1, the others, the 49 nines. I mean, there are some big companies going in there. Fair, everything is fair going in there, but then at least these clubs can start to get better things that are for free. And if you compare to Dortmund before this season, they signed Süle, German international. They signed Schlotterbeck, German international. They signed Adeyemi, German international. They sold players, they got money and all that kind of thing. I'm just saying that sometimes we forget that the culture that you manage to get into a club, this winning DNA, sometimes is not as Bayern. Yes, we end up saying they got a lot of money at Bayern, as they have. But I spoke to Eddie Howe yesterday, and he said that we want to have the same culture as they have at Manchester City. I put that on social media. People attacked me of all human rights, oil, gas. I knew that would come. But for me, that has nothing to do with a culture. Because a culture, a culture that you create, Leicester showed it without money, that they had a great culture. Bodø/Glimt in my home country, Norway, showed it when they beat Rome. And Manchester United showed it the other way. They have all money in the world, but no culture.
When you say culture, what do you mean? What do you mean exactly?
Winning culture.
Sure, because look, it takes time to develop. Frankfurt didn't get there overnight. That was a process, and even the way that they are right now, I think it's accepting that the slow starts happen, and also I think we maybe need to temper our praise of Bayern just a little bit, because it's still August. It's still very much August.
They won the league, Archie. They have won the league.
You're not supposed to say that.
Oh no, sorry. I always at ESPN. I always say to Steve Nicol, "This will be exciting."
Yeah, come on. No, it's yeah. I mean, I hate to be the party, but I have to be the moderator in sorts, and move us on.
Yeah.
But how about we do Eintracht Köln? We have Köln on this side, Eintracht on this side, 2v1. I'm sorry, Archie. And Köln look good. And I would like to hear your assessment of it, as Frankfurt kind of tried to, we touched upon it last week, trying to find their feet within, at this point, at least equally competitive opponents, as opposed to a Real Madrid or a Bayern Munich. Archie, talk to us about Köln's start to the season and how you see them for the rest of the season, because the start's been all right. I believe 1 win and 2 draws, correct? The loss of Modeste obviously being a loss, but not selling in Dortmund, all right. Yeah, how do you see it?
So losing Modeste plus losing Sally Özcan in the center of midfield is huge for them. But it's been said with their new sporting director coming in, Christian Keller, that he's trying to restructure the wage bill. So whilst there was huge dismay here that Anthony Modeste left the club, for them to get 5 million in a fee, plus getting his 3 million wage off the wage bill, that was incredible business for them. And to be honest, the start they've made, I think, is really good, when everybody was expecting them to take a step back this season, qualifying for the Conference League last year in a first season under Stefan Baumgart, which nobody saw coming, where through the strength of personality, he pulled a team which is very much more than the sum of its parts into a position in the table that nobody would have anticipated. This Cologne team right now, I think it's still heavily reliant on Elias Skiri as well for his energy. There's been some surprise that no offer has come in for him in the summer. He was another of the wages that They were looking if the right offer came in, then they would have to think about selling him. Florian Dietz has been okay up front so far, scoring a couple of goals, one in the Conference League. And I think that's the thing is right now, in a similar way to how it was with Eintracht Frankfurt last season, if Cologne go out of the Conference League on Thursday, having lost the first leg last week against Fehervar 2-1 after the sending off of Jeff Chabot, completely turned the tie, I think that will cast a greater cloud for the fan base than anything that happens in the Bundesliga, because in Cologne, they are so focused and so they dream of playing European football, no matter what stage it is. Mm-hmm. They don't have this same kind of snobbery that there is in England about, this European competition. This is a chance for them to go back and do things. And that is what this club historically has done. So I think it's in the Bundesliga, it's been a solid start. That Marvin Schweber made such a big mistake against Leipzig, but still came up with a big save pretty soon after against Nkunku last week, I thought was big. Look, they don't have the same creativity in that team. I think right now, I think they lack creative options, but I think one element that's improved so much from when they have Markus Gisdol in charge to when they have Stefan Baumgart in charge is that even if the players don't have the coolness in their head to finish, their Boxbesetzung, the way that they space themselves out in the box when they get forward is really good. So they will still always get chances. So for now, so far, so good, but important that they get through against Fehervar.
A new Frankfurt potentially in Köln. How do you see Frankfurt?
Yeah, it's a good conversation because Archie is right. The German fans, they use Europe, they use it differently than English. If you see the example, and I think that the Frankfurter fans will be role models for a lot of teams now, especially in Germany, because they use that to unify themselves. They use that to be united. They use that to organize themselves. Having said that, I'm not sure that Köln need that, because Köln is one of those football places, is one of those enthusiastic, passion-filled football cities. I just came from Newcastle now. We are sitting in Manchester now, so we improvise a bit here in my hotel room. But you just feel when you go in Newcastle that is a football city. You just feel it when you're there. And I can say that as a former Borough player. And it's the same in Köln. If you played in Köln with that atmosphere in Köln, you can kind of compare it to St. James Park. Mm-hmm. Back to my Eintracht Frankfurt, I think the game just illustrated now it's back. We've been at the parties now for a long time. We've been at the parties since quarterfinal of the European Cup against Barcelona, West Ham, Rangers winning, and then the setup of the new season was Magdeburg away, Bayern Munich at home, Real Madrid in Helsinki. I mean, who should think that? And I spoke to some people in Frankfurt now, they start using the word crisis. And I said, please, I mean, get your Krisestimmung, crisis atmosphere. And I say, please go to England and get yourself some new words, because you can't have the Krisestimmung now. If you take the Bayern Frankfurt season, yes, they were not good against Köln, but there was a 1-1, and they should have probably won it 1-0 because it was probably the offside equalizer of Köln. But VAR decided otherwise. I am an Eintracht fan, so I could say that. But they beat Magdeburg in the first game. Check. Normal. They got hammered by Bayern. Everybody got hammered by Bayern. They had an okay game losing against Real Madrid. Then the old, what's it called? The tagliche, Alltag, or the daily bread starts. Okay. You know, they're going to Hertha Berlin, which is a desperate lion who you never know what. And I picked a point, did 1 point there, and then they had a point at home against Köln. So I think it's time for Eintracht Frankfurt to just make sure that now the beef bolognese, the great expensive wines, and the Irish coffee and everything afterwards. Now we're back to the real stuff: bread, white cheese, and some ham. No, we're back. They need to get used to this now. And Glasner got to make sure that the new players, which is hard, to get them integrated. And a lot of these players, they love to have crosses. And the guy responsible for crosses is now in Turin. So there is no chance they will get crosses. Mm-hmm. So they have to make. And now they go to Werder Bremen. And Werder Bremen will probably be as high as possible now. So hopefully that could be a win.
It was interesting, and they reapproached it and had a 4 in the back this time, and had the Pellegrini as a new signing left back. Changed it up a bit, which was kind of expected if Kostic left, but we can discuss that another time because
Tuta and Ndika looked vulnerable at the back.
Right.
Let's put it that way. But the rumor is now that Frankfurt is looking for. I don't want to say that because the journalists, they want to. We are looking for a new Kostic. We are looking for a new Hintereg, but they are looking for a elderly defender who have a good presence on the pitch. But I can understand that because the two in the centre half now, they're both 23. So I think that could be a good idea.
How about we go through? I'd be curious because we can kind of get the other games into this.
Yeah.
But we mentioned a Köln potentially. We discussed ahead of the season who had the potential to break into the top 4. And now you see the likes of, well, Bayern is Bayern, but then, and Dortmund's sort of still Dortmund, but still will kind of be up there. But then you have a Leverkusen, which is maybe there is a Krisenstimmung, no? Yeah. So look, I'm learning already. And then you have Leipzig, who have yet to win. Are there any teams that you could see potentially breaking into the top 4? I mean, Mainz have started all right. Freiburg's doing Freiburg from last season. Same for Union Berlin. How is it realistic to see someone else break into the top 4, Archie?
I think Union have to be categorized at the top of the possibilities, along with Freiburg. I just, the way that Union have started when they lost Taiwo Awoniyi going to Nottingham Forest, and they replaced him with Jordan Sibacheux, or PFOC if in the US, depends how he wants to be called. And also losing somebody like Grisha Prömel, who's a huge engine for them in central midfield, him going to Hoffenheim. And on top of that, Max Kruse going in January. I was looking at this season and thinking, okay, this finally might be where they find it a bit tough. But I think that the way they've started is very encouraging for them. Sure, they're going to have Europa League to add on top of this, but the way that they've organized their squad, the way that they buy in under their sporting director, Oliver Runert, has been excellent. And I think it's one thing to win these games for Union because it's easier to play on the counter-attack. We're going to need to wait a little bit longer to see, do they have the necessary edge to cut through teams when teams will sit back against them? But for now, I think Sibacheux actually looks like a better finisher than Taiwo Awoniyi. So they've upgraded in that place. And just all of the cogs in the team, they work in that system. So Union looking encouraging, Freiburg too. To go and win away 1-0 is not easy at Stuttgart because of how open they play and the sorts of chances. And credit to Mark Flecken, their goalkeeper, who was excellent for so much of last season, that after such a howler against Borussia Dortmund, and you could see he looked absolutely crushed after the game last week, he came up with some huge saves where he's not the favourite in those situations, or one-on-one against Borna Sosa, and you're thinking, Sosa should probably score here. So that's a very encouraging sign. But this is the thing. It's difficult to judge before we get into these big European weeks.
Of course.
Yeah, but it's interesting because when all three of us, we are very fond of the Bundesliga. There's so many pluses, and we can talk in a whole podcast for 50+1, because probably at one stage, if Bayern fail in the Champions League, they will say they need more money, and so on and so on. But what a good thing about the German Bundesliga, there are so many stories, there are so many teams that symbolize something. I work with the Premier League now more than I do with the Bundesliga. And yes, you have a lot of teams here as well, but the teams here in England, and I love the English way of football. I love just being here because that is my chill. When I was a kid, this was my league. But what is the interesting with the Bundesliga? You can find something charming about all the teams, because if you see in England, there's foreign owners, foreign coaches, foreign players. And then you have the English and the British fans who make this atmosphere at every game, like yesterday, City, Newcastle, fantastic. But the good thing in Germany, you have Union Berlin. I was there with Uwe Rössler. Uwe Rössler, who used to be from DDR, from East Germany. We came back to East Germany because that was East Germany for me when I get there. The coziest club ever. It's so great to come there. You have Gladbach, who used to be the fantastic team in the 70s, who now trying to come back where they were when they used to be in the Champions League. You have Streich, a guy that has been for 100 years at the club, building up Freiburg against all odds, is up there. So for football lovers all around, just go to German football, because there are teams for, I would say there are teams for every need. Whatever, if you need an outsider, you'll find it. If you do a club that always disappoints you, as your Arsenal, Marcus, the last 10 years, you'll find it. All kind of teams you will find in Germany. So I think it's interesting to see these, after the Leipzig, Dortmund, Leverkusen kind of team. It's very interesting to see who can take the next step. And I think we all hope that it's going to be Union Berlin and Freiburg, because we just love those kind of teams being up there with the best.
Don't forget Fulham in that equation, which are disappointing.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster for Archie as
Marcus, before we end up, because this has gone viral. So this man, we started the podcast with, there is this guy, very good field reporter, pitchside reporter in Dortmund. He is a Titanic, everything going down around him, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2. And in these corridors, there is a man suddenly supposed to be neutral, not a Werder Bremen fan, starts celebrating. Tell us the story, Archie.
So I might have had a little look at the game during a quiet moment in the first half. And during that quiet moment, Brentford got one back. And I was like, right, this is bad luck. I'm putting it away for the rest of the game. And then I got an update so Fulham, Brentford, big West London derby for us. Fulham went 2-0 up inside the first half. Brentford put one back there. Then I got an update, it was 2-2, and I thought, not again. And somebody slid into my Twitter mentions and was like, looks like Brentford are trying to do what Werder Bremen did. I went, absolutely right. I'm not having that. And so I just finished my interviews for ESPN, and I looked at my phone and I saw 90th minute 3-2, and I lost my shit, mate. I couldn't not. It's difficult to contain yourself sometimes, and it was just one of those moments where you have to somehow let it out. And I think I was lucky that nothing was happening in the immediate vicinity, because people knew, okay, he's just having his strange little moment to himself. We'll allow him to do that, and there was nobody really nearby. But it was a great feeling. It was a great feeling, mate.
That's why we follow the game that we love. We live and die by those moments. But listen, as we could have discussed a lot of different topics for a long, long time, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we'll cut it short, or for the time that we have allocated, so to speak. Archie, thanks a lot for joining us. Would love to see some European football in Cologne. And as for us, we will join Eintracht in the Champions League, so we don't have anything to worry about. But cheers a lot. And then we say bye from rainy Manchester.
Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. And if you have any comments, any issues, themes that you want us to discuss, give us a comment, and we always reply to that. And if you know something that we don't know, which you probably do, just give us a shout.